Hello, today we come to the volitional capacity, thinking through these capacities of personhood and then how to have a model of understanding people in the realm of anthropology. Today we want to pick it up there and we want to give a broader perspective now of how you begin to build a fuller understanding of people. Man is a volitional being who chooses. A couple passages that I thought would be helpful would be Ephesians 1, verses 1 through 14. I'm just going to read a place here. It says in verse 4, just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestined us to the adoption as sons by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will, to the praise of the glory of his grace, by which he made us accepted in the beloved. And the passage goes on to speak of God at several levels, where back before time, before the foundation of the earth, he was already planning. And that's an interesting thing to note about God, which has implications to us being made in the image of God. A simple way to say it then is God sets a direction and he goes toward it. He's planning the direction back here before the foundation of the earth, and he begins to pursue that direction. So we can say that God is a volitional being, and he is capable of doing two things: setting direction, and number two, pursuing that direction through specific steps. Philippians 2 then speaks of it in terms of the Son of God, specifically as it relates to Jesus Christ going to a cross. It says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Jesus Christ, who being in the form of God did not consider it robbery to be equal with God. Philippians 2 verse 6. Made himself of no reputation, took upon himself the form of a servant, and became in the likeness of man. Being found in the likeness of man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of a cross. So go back to the bigger picture. God plans these things before the foundation of the world. Jesus Christ comes to this earth, and he has in his mind to pursue a certain direction based on these plans. And so God does it, Jesus Christ does it, the second person of the Godhead does it as well. He sets a direction. I'm going to a cross. And then he pursues that direction. How does he pursue it? He became obedient unto death, even the death of a cross. He became a servant. He humbled himself. He made himself of no reputation. Now, we're not going to get into debate on what all that means, but what we do understand is that just as God is like that, so we in the image of God are like that as well. We set directions and pursue directions. We incline ourselves toward an objective or an understanding, or an objective based upon our understanding of things. We choose our goals, is a better way to say it. The deepest intents of our heart pursue a goal. Now let me repeat what I said earlier in the introduction material when we talked about psychopathology. Everything can be understood as you understand direction. That's such an important statement to make in this course. So that when you look, let me give you an example, a joke teller, someone who's telling jokes all the time. Why would a person do that? Well, you don't always know the motivation, but you know what they do, and you could say, well, they probably want to be liked, they probably want to be funny. Everybody wants to be a comedian and have everybody like them, and so that could be part of the motivation. But let's say he gets a girl by making him laugh, and the girl says, well, you make me laugh, and you're so much fun to be around. And then they go 3, 6, 9 months into the relationship, and he's still telling jokes, and he's still trying to make her laugh, and that's all he's doing, is just being a joke teller. All of a sudden, there's something inside the girl that's like, I want him more than that. Why? Because, you see, his behavior of a joke teller was motivated by something deeper inside of him. He set a direction. And so what would he be pursuing? And still doing it 9 months into the relationship. It's fine if you're just cutting up here and there, but how about if he keeps cutting up and that's all he is? What does that tell you? What is he pursuing? Well, one thought would be he's incapable of being intimate. Not just that he wants to be liked, because now he's already liked by the girl. But he doesn't know how to be intimate, so he hides behind his joke telling. See, that's a motivation. You got the goal is to not have to be pulled into intimacy with someone. And so I can always tell jokes, lighten the spirit, never get serious. And so what I'm trying to get you to see then is that really kind of has an idea of behavior and what's behind the behavior. What are the goals behind the behavior? We can only choose right goals or pursue right goals and consistent behavior as God supplies the enlightenment of our understanding. It must be God that works in our heart to give us a right enlightenment toward our pursuing goals and our behavior. And so ultimately we can do it in our fallenness, but we really need the Word of God to guide us in how to do it in the correct way. Now, having said that, I think that's such an important thing. That leads me to really developing this concept for you here as it relates to people. I brought my little marker board here along. I'm here out in the sunroom today, and just wanted to be in a different location. And so what I want you to see is in the volitional capacity, there are two aspects. There is first the VB, and then there is the VG. And so I think that's showing up on your screen there. Volitional B is your volitional behavior. That's what you do. VG, your volitional goals, that's why you do what you do. And that's a great way to say that. As a matter of fact, I wrote down this statement. I thought I would read it to you. The central principle underlying my ideas about motivation is easily stated. Every behavior has a goal. Or to put it differently, everything we do has a purpose, and we think our actions will achieve. So VG and VB become the two parts of the volitional capacity, and we want to begin to think that through at a deeper level as we begin to understand capacities in general. So I thought the best way to do that again would be then to illustrate this. I remember some years ago working with a lady who was very shy, and she came in and she said, I'm shy. And now, you could take a Tim LaHaye kind of personality theory. You know, he has the 4 personality theories: choleric, melancholy, phlegmatic, and these approaches to the way that people are geared. And kind of LaHaye says they were born that way, and that's the way they are. So if you're choleric, you're high-strung and you lose your temper easy. And if you're phlegmatic, you're just a kind of a happy, easy-go-lucky person. If you're melancholy, you're just kind of a shy person. You're kind of even-keyed. And so a personality trait would say, well, you're born that way. There's nothing you do about it. You're shy. But that's not the theory I would hold at all as I understand people. I would say there's a behavior and there's a goal. And so this shy lady comes into me, see me one day, and she says, I don't like that I'm shy, and I want to think through some things. It's really ruining my relationships. And so we began to talk, and she came in, she said she was lonely, she was afraid. I remember looking at her and thinking she's dressed to the hilt, she's dressed very sharply. Matter of fact, as she talked to me, she had no eye contact. She would answer you with one word, smile politely, but never anything beyond that. And so those were some things I took in as she sat there. And so as I began to think that through, what I would say to you then is in her behavior, there's shyness. All right, in her VG, her goals, I want to understand why she does it. Now, I really don't know why she does it at this particular point, but that's what I want to begin to understand as I think through her life. Now, when you do this, you have to look at their whole life. Okay, so as you're sitting there and you're observing her and learning and understanding her stories and what's going on in her life, I kind of put together her whole life. And so when I get to 5, 6, 7 sessions, I've got some picture of her life that would help me understand her VG, her VB, but not only that, deeper than that, her longings, her rational capacity. And so let me just summarize her life as we talked over those sessions. She told me about her father. He was kind of a noisy, happy, good-natured man. And as she speaks of him, you could always sense a warm appreciation for her father, but always a sense of disappointment, a trace of anger even. But she comes across warmly appreciating her dad. She began to tell me stories about her dad, and she began to bring some of those up. And she was about 25 years of age, and she talked about how her dad and her never really spoke at a serious level with she never really spoke at a serious level with her father, and she never really had a deep conversation with him. It was always superficial, and She never felt like he knew her in her heart. And so I asked her, she told me those stories. I said, what would you have liked your dad to do? It just like came to her so easily. She said, I wish I had one rich conversation where he looked deeply into my eyes and he spoke to the level of my heart and he understood me. I wish he would have involved himself with me like that. She said it never happened. So here's a girl that feels desperate for her dad's meaningful attention. Even at 25, she still talks about it. She'd have done anything to get it. And what I just described to you was her longing to be loved and to be known intimately by her own father. So that pain of really not having that closeness in her longing motivates a need for relief. Where do I find that? That goes to her rational capacity then. How do I win involvement from my father? How do I win involvement from men? How do I do that? It's too frightening to face that somehow my dad failed me. Remember, we talked about that in rational capacity. It's too frightening to face that people let me down. So what do? I look inside myself. I look for a defect in me, something I can work on, something I can have control over. And so she wouldn't face it was the fault of her dad who let her down. That hurt too much. She began to say, well, maybe it's something inside of me. Maybe it's my fault. Now she has something she can work on. What can I do? Well, what she's going to try to do is avoid the pain that she feels when she longs for that intimacy. So she's going to try to avoid the pain to be in control. She began to image herself. And when I talk about rational images again, I just want to deepen the thought from rational capacity and build on this now. And that is the idea that she began to see herself as a woman without substance. Nothing inside was worth a serious response. It's interesting, she gave me an image. When people speak deeply of their pain and speak deeply of their images, how they see themselves, they'll put it in a word picture. They'll put it in a way that will express a deeper truth. That's why you see so many images in the Bible of Jesus Christ. He's the warrior. He's the lamb. He is the I am. Just pictures of his images that express who he is. He's on that rider on the white horse as he comes down. He's the rider on the clouds. You just see this sense of images, and they speak deeply about who someone is. So in her case, she began to image herself in a certain way. She was walking down the street one day, and she saw this mannequin in the store window, and she saw it was beautifully dressed. And it occurred to her, that's me. I'm like a lifeless mannequin in a window. I'm pretty, I'm dressed up, I look nice. But inside, nobody really wants to know my heart. Maybe there is an empty heart there. Maybe there's a heart in me that's not worth knowing at the level that I long for. And so she said, I'm like a lifeless mannequin on display in a store window. Boy, that was a deep image that spoke to her soul. Out of that image then, from her relationships, from her mislongings will come an image to a belief. And her belief was, how do I handle life? Where's my route to life statement? So in her case, it's too painful to give herself to someone who might treat her lightly, like her father. I'm not going to open up to my dad because he's not going to take me serious. And so what she began to do, she began to hide her real self. She began to test that with her feelings and opinions and ideas. She said to herself, well, I'll let people only see the outside of me because deep down I believe the inside of me is not worth attention. But at least folks stop to look at a nicely dressed mannequin in a store window, so I'll look sharp on the outside. I'll keep my nails painted. I'll dress sharp and I'll look pretty. She was an attractive lady. And so what do you learn from that? She forms an RB, a rational belief system. Social distance protects her from pain. Social distance is the route to life. You see, that was her RB. A little different than the other illustration I gave you, but everybody has their own route to life statements. And that's how you want to begin to think through that. So behind that RB is a VG, a goal. She has a goal in how she's going to live her life. And what is her goal? Her goal is hiding herself. It's the best way to stop pain. So control is the goal. So how am I going to keep my real self out of view? I won't offer my opinion, my ideas. I'll just let you see the outside of me, but never really see my heart because I don't know what you'll do with that. And so there's her goal. From her goal goes to a rational belief system. She's going to figure out, or a volitional belief system. She's going to start getting behavior that she's going to test and see if this will work. And so there's several options that could have happened to this girl. Somebody who didn't feel they were worthy in this inside may react and go really harsh on the outside, maybe with a cocksure arrogance and act like she knows everything she's talking about. In her case, she didn't choose that, but that's a way to cover up what's really going on in her heart. Short kids in school tend to be cocky in their arrogance, and they tend to be smart alecks because they're covering up the fact that they feel insecure about being short or inadequate. And so that's not a route she chose. Some people go intellectual styles where they just become very smart to cover up the fact of their heart being missed, and it seems natural to them to do that. But in her case, her behavior was she became shy, introverted. To her, it was a reasonable choice. Some would say, I was born that way. No, I would say, no, you're not born that way. You chose that based upon goals, based upon beliefs, based upon images, based upon your longing. And so a chosen effort, chosen behavior to reach her chosen goal. That's how you want to begin to think through the volitional capacity. So before that situation, she would have simply said something like this, I was born this way. But now she's begun to get an understanding of what's driving her shyness, to keep her real self out of view, and to step out and take risks now. That would be a great move for her, but that's difficult for her to do because everything inside of her is saying it's too painful, somebody will hurt you again. And so it becomes a reasonable choice. That's the volitional capacity, volitional behavior and volitional goals.